Welcome all to my channel. Today, if you saw yesterday's video, yesterday I was a little distraught about the Damar Hamlin situation, not issue, but situation, sorry. Specifically, like the fact what had happened, watching it live, caught me off guard. Not seeing that something like that of that nature happened. I mean, I've seen players getting also paralyzed, which can be a little traumatizing as well too. But seeing someone just collapse like that and just like having to bring out the CPR kit and IED units and such for that, it it jars you a little bit at that point. To be honest, it's something like you don't know what's going on, what happened, why he gets up and then all of a sudden collapses. It's like kind of like whoa. Um, so that's why I was like kind of like you saw me in my state that I was in basically at that point as well too. Um, Honestly, um, we now know what the issue was. He had a cardiac arrest. Um, the fact that it happened on national TV is like unprecedented. Someone having actually a cardiac arrest in a pro sports game televised nationally, and like basically having cardiac arrest right then and there was like unprecedented in ways. Um, and it was really surprising. But the one thing that I'm coming towards basically for this channel is, or this video basically, is this. It involves Skip Bayless. Specifically this tweet. He basically says, no doubt the NFL is considering postponing a game. How late in the season game of this magnitude, which, yeah, it is an important game. And this last statement right there, which suddenly seems so relevant. Now the question is like, how do people interpret this tweet? Basically, this is a man who just tweets, and he doesn't bother to respond or look at the response. He just tweets out basically. Um, so the question comes down to is, um, well, was this supposed to be the case of that nature? Was he supposed to? Should he have tweeted of that nature? What was this tweet meant as a way to get a rise out of people, or was this more of a case where he was, based on that statement, trying to say like, hey, the game should be irrelevant at this point. It should be this man's health. I don't know the nature of what he was thinking. This is only conjecture on my part. I have no idea. I mean, it's only him and only him that can explain it. As far as why he tweeted the way he tweeted that time, especially how he tweeted it, considering that the when he tweeted that, he came out to the aspect following tweet basically like, hey, look, this is, you're taking this out of misconstruing what I was trying to push out, basically, or trying to put out a message of basically like, the men's health is more important than anything else. But is that the case, or it's unknown because you're basing, if you look at his prior tweet to that tweet, he basically talks about the fact that like horrific injury suffering on the football field, and he basically says like, hey, look, that's football, and that move forward basically, that the game always moves fairly quickly. um and then he comes out with that statement, or that next following tweet seemed, I don't know, kind of inappropriate at that time because yes, I mean, it was one of those things where, yeah, granted, he was trying to maybe answer some people's questions. Maybe, I don't know. As far as like, oh, what happens to the game? Like, do they play it over again or something like that? Or when do they restart the game or such? Like, do they play it that night? Do they play it the next day, the following week, whatever it may be? Because it is a crucial game before week 18, and it has playoff implications. Um, and like I said, I can't speak to the mind or nature of what Skip Bayless was thinking when he tweeted that. Um, but it was a case where he did come on the air today, on January 3rd, on Undisputed, on his own. He seemed distraught and exasperated on air. Um, but I don't know if it was the case because he was exasperated with all the replies back to him from pretty much almost every pro athlete that was out there. And I'm not just talking like, NFL athletes, but also basketball, baseball. They were coming at him basically and like saying like, dude, your tweet is so inappropriate. At a time like this, you're thinking about football when a man's life is at stake. And it's true. I mean, honestly, either one, Bayless should have. I mean, Skip Bayless should have, rephrased that tweet differently before sending it out, or two, he should have left it off as is, where he had two tweets prior about the man's health, about Damar Hamlin, like he was him and his family praying for him, and he should have just left it at that, and that would have been it. Should never have followed up with anything else. Like when it comes to relations to the game itself, as well as to the game itself, as well as resuming the game and such, he probably should have talked about it on air the following day, not like at that moment in time. Um, I think he wasn't reading the room. The fact that it was Twitter. I mean, we don't know. Again, I mean, if he was coming on air, at least we could have seen his expression, facial expression, as well as heard his tone in the voice to know if he was sincere in that aspect of, like, thinking about the man's health versus the game or whatever. Writing it off on a tweet, it's hard to determine what his nature mindset was of what the tone should be. Um, so at that point, I think this is a lesson to be learned, um, about when you tweet something of this nature for something so tragic, um, that you got to be mindful of what you tweet out there, because even though you don't mean any harm, it can be misconstrued, because the fact is like no one knows what your thought of mind is at that moment in time. It's one of those things where, like, you think about like thoughts and prayers and such, to the family, and then you just probably stay back, unless of course it's like gun violence specifically towards children. Then yeah, you go all off. I would go all off on that point as well too. Like, when all these gun things that were going on, yeah, I was tweeting like crazy. Like, how are these guns getting into, like, people's hands, going after children like this? Are we doing nothing? I mean, but it's not a case where, like, oh, um, with all these gun violence, like, do we still like repeal the Second Amendment or something like that, or something along the lines of, whatever it is, basically, to the point where, like, there's a right way to tweet things, and right way to think or say things. In this case, like I said, Bayless should have basically left it as is with the prayer part, and then never tweeted out that. But in this situation, he just kept tweeting, not realizing his tweets, and then I think his producer basically came on to him and said, like, "Hey, look, you gotta go back and explain your tweet, because that makes what you said seems a little bit like cruel and heartless." Uh, Honestly, a lot of pro athletes, are now asking for Skip Bayless to be like fired. Um, I don't know if he should be fired right now. I mean, he has been known to say certain things that are controversial to get a rise out of people. I honestly first and foremost, he needs to go on air in front of Shannon Sharp and want to apologize to him, because it's a brotherhood, and Shannon Sharp, being an NFL player, knows knows the adversity and injuries that occur on the field and such. That it's a brotherhood, that he needs to come on air first, apologize to Shannon Sharp himself first, of course, apologizing to the family of Damar Hamlin himself, basically, but then apologize to Sharp and explain to Sharp himself directly, is like what he was thinking at that moment in time as well too, and to may possibly suspend him without pay. I don't know what it is. Then there's the other aspect of it. Maybe he should just be suspended without pay. I honestly believe maybe it's time for Skip Bayless maybe to retire, because it's one of those things where maybe he wasn't thinking. He was thinking of it, from the olden, like the golden era of football, where you can go crazy on tackling people. That he should probably done that as well too. Like, he should probably retire at that point, because he seems like you're that old grandpa, uh, or elderly uncle, that basically granduncle or granduncle or grandfather, basically, or like they'll just say some random stuff, like almost like a Tourette type of thing, basically, Tourette syndrome type of thing, basically, and they just say, and you just, I was like, oh, okay, ignore it. But eventually, sometimes it does hit, something. Sometimes whatever they say, sometimes will uh, hit you to the core. Like, this is what Skip Bayless said. I mean, to the point where, like, he was making not reference, but he was discussing about playing football at a time when a man's life was at stake. He didn't need to put that out there. I think it was already known at this point. The game itself was not a concern, but the man's health was a concern at this point. And there was no need for Skip Bayless to like tweet that out. It was the obvious. It was like, why is he stating the obvious that was his nature? There was no need for that, because like people are not dumb. People are smart enough to realize and are compassionate enough to realize like, hey, look, the game should not have started. The game should be suspended. Uh, let's figure this out the next day. Right now, let's worry about the man on the field and like pray to God, that he gets better basically and like recovers. Um, so yeah, with that, um, I don't know what to say. You can leave comments, feedbacks. Let me know what your thoughts on what's about Skip Bayless and his tweet, whether it was right or wrong. Um, the only thing is like, if you ask me questions, I can't answer the questions because I don't know too much about Skip Bayless. Like I said, I've only watched Skip Bayless in the past. Sometimes I've watched some stuff here and there with him on Undisputed versus Shannon Sharp, and then I have seen him when he's gone one on one with Stephen A. for that period of time. I think it was part of an interruption, or I forgot the actual um, show that they were both on at that time, and it was kind of interesting to see them talk like that. Basically, honestly, I don't know what Skip Bayless was thinking of in the situation. So, um, but yeah, I can't answer any questions related to that, or Damar Hamlin for that matter. I mean, honestly, I have no idea what to say, because like I'm not a cardiologist. I have no idea. Um, let's just hope and pray that he gets better. And he recovers quickly, and for his family as well too. And as far as the game resuming, that's something that'll be determined later on. Let the NFL figure that part out. Um, and that's as far as it goes. I mean, normally I would say like unedited, unfiltered, and unrehearsed. This is definitely unrehearsed, but in more of a case where like it was filtered and edited a little bit, as you saw. It's one of those rare cases where I do that. Um, from that, I'll just leave it at that. And you're welcome to subscribe to my channel if you want to subscribe. I'm not pushing you for that, but if you see my other videos, you'll know what I'll do if I get the number of subscribers, basically. But in any case, but this is a very sensitive subject that um, needs approach and relearning as far as social media. And the day of in our age of social media, you got to be careful what you post. And I think Skip Bayless is learning, as well as others in his field have learned from him. Like, okay, we got to be careful what we post and such. But with that, I'll leave it off at that. Until next time.